Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to talk about Venus's entrance into Pisces, a sign where Venus is exalted. And this is especially interesting because Venus will also be coming up on conjunctions with both Jupiter and Neptune, who are also set to conjoin each other in Pisces in the week ahead. One of the more benefic combinations of the year, an exalted Venus next to Jupiter in its own sign, along with, mystical, otherworldly Neptune. Pretty interesting transit. I'm looking forward to this. I feel like, again, the past couple of years, there's been so much Saturn energy in the air. It's nice to see just a lot of Jupiter and Venus and this very uplifting placement with Neptune. So I have a lot of hope and optimism about some of these transits and what they might bring. So let's go ahead and get into it. But before I do that, I want to remind all of you that this week, all the way until April 11th, you can get 50% off all of my 2022 astrology courses. That is my year 1 course, my year 2 course, my horary program, and my readings and passages programs. Those are all 1-year programs. You can also bundle 2 of them together and save even a little bit more than 50% off if you add a second course in as well. So you can find those on nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to navigate over to the website right now and just show you briefly how to find it. So you go to nightlightastrology.com and you're going to click on the courses page. So the courses page right here. And if you are new and just starting, you do not have a background yet in Hellenistic astrology, then you're probably going to want to go to the first year course. So I really don't let people jump ahead in my programs unless they have completed other certification courses in Hellenistic astrology in particular, because you need to, even if you've studied astrology a lot already, if you don't have a background in this, you need to start from scratch. And believe me, as someone who did that myself, studying ancient astrology is one of the best things you could possibly do for yourself as an astrologer, whether you're brand new or you've been studying for a while. It's incredible to study from the ground up. Anyway, click on view enrollment details. It'll take you to the bottom. You can see the early bird payment is down to $900. Usually it's $1,299. And the full course, that makes it $900 off the full price of the program, which is 50%. Click on enroll now. You'll see you can add a second course for $800, which is even $100 cheaper. So it's a pretty nice deal, especially if you are bundling things together. All right. Well, I hope that some of you will be able to take advantage of that. That's backed by popular demand because a lot of people were not able to take advantage of the Kickstarter when it was around. So we had enough requests that we decided to run it for 1 more week. Okay, well, also, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to me, helps me grow the channel if you like this content. And I'm going to be doing a bunch of live casts as well. So people always ask me, how do I get notified when you're doing live casts? If you click and if you subscribe, then you click on the notification bell, you'll receive updates when I go live. And I'll be doing that a few times in the next week. All right, so today we're talking about Venus's exaltation in Pisces, which is taking place from April 5th all the way till May 2nd, with a few highlights which involve Venus's conjunction with Neptune and then Jupiter between April 24th and May 2nd. We're going to save analysis of those conjunctions until later in the month. Today we're just going to sort of talk about Venus and Venus's exaltation in Pisces in general. So, I'm going to bring up the real-time clock and just give you guys a view of what Venus in Pisces is looking like here. So here is Venus in Pisces, and note that Venus enters Pisces just as Jupiter and Neptune are getting together, and then Venus will eventually go right through those 2 planets. Again, that is between, let's see here, where is my handy little icon here? That is between April 24th and May 2nd. So this is a great transit for a lot of reasons. One is that you have both benefics very well dignified, meaning they're in their home sign. One of Venus's homes is Taurus, the other one is Libra, but Venus is also exalted in Pisces, so very comfortable, which means that you get a lot more auspicious expressions of Venus when Venus is exalted. Sometimes there are some bewares as well that we'll go over, but It's a great place in terms of the ancient dignity. And then you have this very auspicious looking Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. There are some shadows to all of these that we'll talk about as well. I don't want to make it seem like it's all roses, but compared to, in my mind, compared to Saturn-Uranus the past couple of years, Pluto, Pluto, Saturn in back-to-back, Saturn in Capricorn and then Aquarius, Jupiter in back-to-back Saturn signs. It's nice to have a little change of pace this year and have some really nice benefic looking transits to pay attention to. Anyway, it's about a month-long transit, so we're going to talk about it overall. So let's start with the question, what is a planetary exaltation? I want you to think about this in two basic ways. Planets, ancient astrology is basically, let me back up and start by saying this. Ancient astrology is basically like learning a language that it's not like learning a, like German or Spanish or English or something like that. You're learning a language that you can only learn by sort of meditating on a mandala. The mandala is the signs of the zodiac, the houses, as well as the planets, and as well as aspects. So planets, signs, houses, and aspects make up 4 sort of fundamental components of ancient horoscopic astrology. There are then relationships between planets and signs, planets and houses, houses and signs, aspects and planets, and so on and so forth. You can't understand any of them alone. So if you want to understand houses, you have to understand signs. If you want to understand signs, you have to understand planets. And if you want to understand planets, you have to understand aspects. And it just keeps going like that. So one of the ways you learn ancient astrology, or one of the ways that ancient astrologers taught astrology, was by teaching you a lot about the interconnection between different components of astrology. So how does one planet behave or interact or relate to another planet? This is part of that language is called the language of dignities. We call it that. It wasn't originally like, oh, and now welcome to the section of the textbook where we talk about planetary dignities. You just literally see ancient astrologers talking about certain planets that sort of belonged to certain signs, which we eventually called rulerships, and then certain planets that were said to be exalted in certain signs, which we would eventually call exaltation rulerships. But basically, for example, with Pisces, what we're saying is that there is a sort of Pisces is like Jupiter and Jupiter is like Pisces. And this is important because the sign will become one of the 12 places, what we now call houses. And because of that, the planet that quote unquote rules the sign, Jupiter, for example, rules Pisces, that planet will then have responsibilities or kind of will preside over the karma of the topics of the house. So even though Jupiter may have nothing to do inherently with marriage, Venus or the moon may have more to do with marriage and family, for example. But if Pisces occupies the 7th whole sign place when you're born, then Jupiter, the god, may preside over marriage, and perhaps you marry someone who's very wealthy or learned or arrogant. Any of those would be possibilities if Jupiter is presiding over the place of marriage, as well as a million other possibilities, right? But just to give you a little sense of how dignities work, how planets relate to signs and signs to houses and so forth. So when you're talking about Pisces, what you're saying is, in a sense, that Jupiter will preside over the topics of whatever place Pisces occupies in the horoscope. But what you're also saying is that if a planet happened to be passing through Pisces, it would behave and act and express itself through the lens or through the archetypal qualities of Jupiter. And not only Jupiter, but also Venus, because Jupiter, while Jupiter is the domicile ruler of Pisces, Venus is the exaltation ruler of Pisces, which is basically just a way of saying that while Pisces is mainly a feminine, Jupiterian, watery place, that it also is a place that honors and exalts the qualities of Venus, the goddess, at the exact same time. And that sort of describes what the archetypal mood of this temple, the starry celestial temple, is all about. It's the temple of Jupiter in a place where the goddess is revered. It's a fishy, watery temple. It's a feminine temple, and so forth. So when Mars, for example, enters the sign of Pisces, which it will do in this month of April, it will behave and express itself according to its own nature. First and foremost, Mars will be aggressive or assertive. But then it may develop, let's call it, a romantic sense of mission and purpose. A romantic sense of mission and purpose. Now, why do I string all of that together? If you study astrology even for a while, and I say Mars in Pisces gives you a romantic sense of mission and purpose, you'll probably go, yeah, I can resonate with that, that description. But why? Well, it's because, in part, when Mars is in the feminine, watery, double-bodied sign of Jupiter, the feminine water sign of Jupiter, and the exaltation of Venus, it will have to behave in accordance with the customs and gods of that temple. So suddenly, Mars becomes the romantic crusader with a sense of righteous purpose and cause. It's a combination of Jupiter and Venus, Mars expressing itself through the lens, or the almost like being refracted through the light of these, like a prismatic expression of Mars being filtered through like a what am I saying? Like a Jupiter-Venus lens or something like that. I think I'm really badly mixing my metaphors. So I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So what is a planetary exaltation? It is a planet in a sign that will be revered and will have a way of expressing its qualities in that sign. The sign will be like that planet along with the primary ruler of the sign. For example, in Aries, it's the sign of Mars. It's a Marsy temple through and through, but it is also a temple where you'll feel these exalted solar qualities at the same time that you have the martial qualities. So a planet moving through that sign of Aries, say Venus in Aries, Venus will express itself in a Mars-like way, and also these kind of big, grand solar ways. Okay, so part of what an exaltation does, from a technical standpoint, is it adds dimensionality to a sign and what that sign feels like, and what gods preside over that sign, and also what gods will end up having karmic responsibilities for the topics of that sign based on the house it occupies in the horoscope. So that's sort of like, that's what a planetary exaltation is. Now, let's think about, what does it mean that Venus is exalted in the sign of Jupiter, the feminine, watery, double-bodied sign of the fish? So I put this little sentence together to give you a feeling. Jupiter, planet of faith, expansion, higher knowledge, virtue, and abundance, exalts the goddess of love, beauty, sensuality, harmony, romance, and desire. So it's like this god of Jupiter that represents these things also exalts, really honors, reveres, worships, loves, adores these qualities: love, beauty, sensuality, etc. So these are 10 qualities that you will see when Venus is exalted in Jupiter's feminine water sign of the fish. Let's go through them. Number 1, that which is sublime, because Venus is beautiful, but Jupiter's aggrandizement, Jupiter's bigness, Jupiter's tendency towards things that are transcendent will make Venus into not just beauty, but something sublime. And sublime can be something that is, the scope is big. It's like looking into the Hubble telescope. It's beautiful. It's sort of so big that it's a little scary, but it's also beautiful at the same time. So something that is sublime, that's a Venus-Jupiter quality. And you'll see a theme repeating, which is that when Venus is exalted in the sign of Jupiter, there can almost be like a lovesick quality, like I've drunk too much of Venus kind of quality. But sublime isn't a bad expression of that. The sublime. Number 2, that which is beautiful and good, right? So these are like, the people who are, I have a mission, a sense of purpose, but it's good, it's true, and it's beautiful. People who want to save endangered animals or something like that. There's a sense of the care and compassion, but also, to be honest, many people build and I'm not trying to criticize people who, want to take care of endangered animals. I think that's a great idea. And a great, obviously people who do this are doing good work. But as we know, in this world, there are also people who love to build their reputation on, I'm a philanthropist, I care so much, and aren't I attractive and beautiful and so wonderful for doing so, right? So that can be part of Venus, and Venus is being exalted in the sign of Jupiter. Romantic inflation is very similar. Anything that is aggrandized, any romantic impulse or feeling or thought that's made a lot bigger, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes we need a dose of romantic inflation, and sometimes that could be taking us over the top somehow. Number 4, a loss of the rational in favor of the sensual. Don't forget that Mercury finds it hard to exist in this sign. In the ancient language of the dignities, this is a place where the rational, the philosophical, the mental, those qualities are diminished in favor of the sensual, theatrical, romantic, the big and sublime, the otherworldly, and so forth. And so it's not that there's no possible union or synthesis between these qualities, but sometimes this sign and Venus's exaltation in the sign will mean a diminishment of the rational in favor of the sensual. That could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, totally depends on the circumstance. Number 5, similar, the physical world devoid of the philosophical. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. There's a sort of revelry in that. There's a sort of Dionysian quality. And we know that there's a religious inclination behind the ancient cult of Dionysus. But there's also, so it's dependent. We talk about Dionysus, for example, sometimes we just mean, partying and getting drunk on wine and sort of being dismembered in ecstatic, revelry. But other times we may also mean, sometimes you set aside, like even in bhakti yoga, we're not really interested in mental speculation. We're interested in love, in the bliss of Krishna and Radha, the lovers, and, leave aside mental speculation, go dance, who sing, pour your heart out, love. So sometimes there's this, ecstatic, experiential quality with Venus and Jupiter in Pisces that says leave behind the philosophical. Other times you're talking about, things that are rather meaningless and superficial and just about desire and garden variety lust or vanity and devoid of why am I here? What am I doing? Number 6, an attraction to glamour, wealth, and beauty in general. You could have someone interested in the fine arts, in writing, in painting, in photography, but also people who are interested in fame and gossip columns about who's wearing what, or whatever. So number 7, an aggrandized sense of virtue or goodness. Sort of mentioned that earlier when we talk about that which is beautiful and good. But this is almost a sense of let's another word, not just aggrandized, but let's say amplified. An amplified sense, maybe a better word in this case, an amplified sense of what is good and just and beautiful. Aphrodite, Venus, was traditionally associated with justice because there was a thought, according to ancient Greek philosophers, that anything that was beautiful had an intimate connection with what was true and with what was just. And we're talking about a beauty that's not just about a superficial evaluation of forms in the world. It's about essence. So this idea of aggrandized isn't the right word. I really should replace that one. In fact, let's see if I can edit it. Yeah, I'm going to. I'm just going to edit it right now. Let's call it an amplified sense. All right. How about that? An amplified sense. Yeah, I can just do that right on the fly. An amplified sense of virtue or goodness, which I think to me, what we're basically talking about is that there's something that catches our eye, that something that is good catches our eye because there's also something. It's not just morally good. It's not just an ought or a should. There's something attractive about it. So that's what I'm trying to get at there. I'm not sure I nailed that one. But number 8, beauty as a guide toward truth and justice. Well, there we go. I said it a little bit better in number 8. There's this weird way in which if you want to know what is good, pay attention to what is truly beautiful. So that goes along with number 7. Let's go to, and I don't think I have anything new to say about that. It's just your compass toward what is good, true, and beautiful is it's like Venus in Pisces can show you through compassion, through the heart, through instinct, through feeling. This is beautiful because it is good, because it is true. And that's one of my favorite qualities about Venus in Pisces. I always seem to like reorient my moral compass and actually find myself not just slogging along doing the right thing in a sort of Saturn-like way, but I find myself doing the right thing because it's actually beautiful and it feels good to do so. And that's the kind of Venus and Pisces feeling that I'm trying to get at here with these last two. Number 9, faith, romance, and devotion. I think at the core of every world religion that, I've studied anyway, whether we're talking about Sufism, Islam, we're talking about Buddhism, Christianity, there's always a sect, or there are always expressions of the faith that really boil down to nothing more than devotion. That there is a romantic, faithful, devoted, sweet, humble, attentive, careful, concerned, curious, steadfast quality. I think of my grandmother, for example, who had Venus in Pisces, and she liked to get up early in the morning at sunrise, and she liked to walk through an apple orchard there wasn't a big one, but my grandparents lived out in the country. They had about 80 acres of land in rural Michigan, and my grandpa was a hobby farmer, and he had an apple orchard. And my grandma, I remember, would walk out in the apple orchard, and I was never really up early enough to see her. But I remember one morning we got up really early because we were going to go fishing, and I went out into the yard and I saw her walking with her Bible through the apple orchard and sitting under a tree and reading. And she would often she was the kind of person, and it's like, it's hard for me to kind of think do these people still exist? But she was the kind of person who literally the deer would come really close to her and sometimes just sit down. She just had a very peaceful, tender way. And she was the essence of who, when I think of my grandmother, although, I'm not trying to idolize her, although you see how I can get into that territory. You see even how I'm talking about this, you start to feel oh, everything's going, it's like you're worshiping Venus, right? So, but these romantic, faithful Jupiter Venus-like qualities. And I remember, and my dad also was born with Venus in Pisces. And when he would preach from the pulpit on Sunday mornings, the way he told stories, very Venus in Pisces, a sense of what is faithful, true, beautiful, devoted. You guys ever see me when I get on my rants, and I sometimes call them sermons from the stars? To me, that's all Venus and Pisces territory, because it's a combination of the exaltation of beautiful qualities, words, thoughts, feelings, as well as the sort of faithful religious mood and sentiments of Jupiter in its feminine sign. So, if you like my channel, I think there's probably a good chance that you like my ascendant ruler is Venus. And well, I won't go into it. I won't go into my own chart anymore, but faith, romance, and devotion at the essence of every world religion. If I think of the Dalai Lama, if I think of Thich Nhat Hanh, so many different great saints that, have been an important part of my life and my growth and development. What I think I could boil it down to behind each and every one of the people I admire so much is the tender-hearted devotion to what they believe. That is probably one of my favorite qualities of Venus in Pisces. And then number 10, leave it on a high note, romantic tragedy. So don't forget that Venus, although we like to think of Venus with all beautiful, pretty things, Venus is very Shakespearean, especially in the sign of Pisces. Beauty is, you can't separate beauty from ugliness. You can't separate love from war. So anything that Venus adores and exalts usually comes really close to things that are tragic. Love and union comes very close to separation and pain and hurt. So that sense of what is sort of Shakespearean, and it's like the sublime thing that we started with, there's a sense of the exalted Venus qualities that can be almost so big that they're tragic even. Like Romeo and Juliet, very Venus and Pisces. Kurt Cobain was born with Venus and Pisces, by the way. I think about him. He's an easy one that comes to my mind. Anyway, that is what I've got for today to sort of prime this watery pump and get us thinking about Venus entering the sign of the fish. I am really personally super excited to talk about. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm going to be really inspired. Like, I feel like some of my best creative work. Well, I was just on, speaking of this, I think I've told you guys this yesterday, but I was just on vacation in the Virgin Islands celebrating my mom's retirement. And while I was there, at least 5 or 6 different ideas for new series that I'll be doing, all inspired really by sitting by the ocean and praying, like without having to do any work for the first time since 2014. It was completely blissful. But what came from that for me was inspiration, the sense of redeeming, romantic sense of what's compelling. We need that. We need the waters of Neptune and Jupiter and Venus. We need that inspiration from time to time. Who cares if it's realistic or not? You know what I mean? As long as we're not, joining one of the comet cults or whatever, then we're good. So, all right, that's what I've got for today, everybody. Don't forget to please like and subscribe. Click the notification bell after you subscribe to receive updates. Really appreciate all of you helping my channel grow. Don't forget, there's 50% off all of my courses until next Monday. Go to nightlightastrology.com to check it out. Venus and Pisces from April 5th to May 2nd. Hope you guys are having a good one. We'll talk again soon.